Honorable Minister, Your Excellencies, Secretary to the Ministry, the Dean, Madam Kadirigama, distinguished guests and friends. Convocation is an important day, not only to those who are awarded the distinctions, but for all those who are studying and who see themselves coming up the line next year. So first and foremost, let me wish all of you the best as you have studied international relations and diplomacy, and either use it to gain employment or to comment on what is happening in this world. This institute has helped to create awareness of diplomacy and international relations. A country should require 5-6 institutions like this with the differing viewpoints. Unfortunately, we have only one. But we hope in the coming years, as we sponsor learning, that there will be more institutes, both studying security, international economic relations, and diplomacy. The minister, while addressing, said, "This is a significant moment for Sri Lanka." I would say this is also a significant moment for the world, because there is a question mark as to what will happen with the Western dominance of the global order, which has lasted for over 7 decades. At the end of the World War II, America led the Western powers in determination to meet a challenge from the Soviet Union, and with the long-term objectives of ensuring global peace and also ensuring that there is no rivalry to the Western power. So you had the Cold War first, and at the collapse of the Soviet Union and the Eastern Bloc, the post-Cold War order. Today this question is being asked after the results of the referendum in Britain and the election of Donald Trump to be the next president of USA. Whether this is the end of the Western dominance of the global order. Certainly, there are many who fear the coming to being of isolationist USA and an inward-looking UK. I don't think either of those will happen. At the moment, the government of UK is looking for a new role in the world, how to adapt themselves to a global role, having left the single market. I don't think anyone has studied the consequence of leaving the single market. So it's a new game both for UK and the rest of the European community. Secondly, the election of a new US president who's advocated a re-look at foreign policy. It might challenge the belief of some of the orthodox members of the US foreign policy establishment. How do you deal with Russia? How do you deal with your own neighbors in North America? And how do you deal with free trade? But the fact is, it was a revolt against the establishment. And Donald Trump could not have got there unless he offered a new vision. So even if he doesn't implement everything his promise, still there will be a reassessment of the US role. And certainly, I don't think it's the end of the US trying to dominate the world or US going to isolation. But what we are seeing now is the end of the post-Cold War order. That's simply because for 70 years the policies pursued by the West, granting of independence to the Asian nations, the promotion of their own models in the Asian countries, the general agreement on trade and tariff, and the World Trade Organization, the alliances that United States had with Japan, some of the East Asian and the Southeast Asian countries, and the strategic understanding with China has all resulted in a booming Asian economy which was able to withstand even the 2008 financial crisis. Despite the dire predictions of what will happen to the Japanese economy and the Chinese economy is still holding. And I think it will continue growing, maybe sometimes at a slower pace, but nevertheless, the Asian economies will keep growing, added on to fueled on by India. What has happened since then is also the emergence of China to demarcate a role for itself. It doesn't see itself as a rival to USA the way the Soviet Union did. But having an expanded economy, taken the brunt of the financial crisis, and having had a strategic understanding with USA, it's an effort to redefine its role and expand its role in Asia. The question that is being asked by everyone is what is going to happen to the TPP. This was, after all, a belated response from the Obama administration of how to have their Asian allies together and give them market access on rules determined by US, so it will be favorable to the American businesses. Now, these are the core of the campaign of Donald Trump, right or wrong, that free trade has lost them jobs in Mexico and in Asia. I think it's more an issue of the dominance of the market over the political system, the country where the political system could not correct the mistakes of the market and led to a lowering of the living standards in the Western, of the middle class and the working class in the USA. Nevertheless, what President Obama has hoped was to get in Japan and some of the East Asian and Southeast Asian countries into a closer trading partnership with America, paving the way later on for a single market. It also gave access to better access to US businesses into these Asian countries. But it left out China, it left out India, and a number of significant countries did not join the TPP. So what happens now without the TPP? Some of the Southeast Asian countries have said they want to go ahead, while Japan has said TPP is meaningless without the United States. Meantime, there's also the Chinese initiative. Here lies the challenge for Asia. I think with or without USA, Asia must go ahead of forging closer economic partnership. One of the shortcomings of TPP, as we saw, all of us were left out. So what did it matter to us whether it succeeded or not? There is a misunderstanding of Asian politics by the Obama administration. And Donald Trump is not the first man to say that they should relook. This was a backlash against President Bush, the policies. And for a long time, there's a vacuum in US policy which was getting filled by TPP, also by China, and Russia asserting itself in the European theatre. But that's a regional issue. It concerns West, not us in Asia. What concerns us in Asia is what is our future. How are we going ahead? Firstly, the USA is not writing its hands off trade. It says we will do a case-by-case approach to the trade agreements with the Asian countries. Now, our own approach had been to go on a bilateral, on a dual path for agreement with USA. Can we join the TPP? But we should also get ready for FTA. So in a way, we have prepared ourselves. But what is important now is not even the FTA with USA. That will take time. But what is Asia going to do? But you have to remember, even without the TPP, the Asian markets are open to the USA, like we sent our apparels. Secondly, that for a long time the Asian development was funded by Japan. Japan had its own policy of economic relations with Asia, of improving and upgrading the Asian economies, of putting in money on development of infrastructure, on the development of education, on development of agriculture, and in some places even direct investment by Japanese firms in China, in Thailand, as one of the examples, in Singapore as we have. Secondly, the One Belt, One Road initiative by China. A lot of people have asked me, what is the One Belt, One Road initiative? Can you define it? I can't, because the Chinese government itself is evolving this concept. That's what I feel, and having signed on to it, I mean, as they came to Sri Lanka, and when the government responded with its own economic policies, you found a new chapter in the One Belt, One Road initiative. Thirdly is Prime Minister Modi. He's put together, at least he's putting together a lot of initiatives to deal with the neighborhood, and which is welcome. Because India first looked at the non-aligned countries, and after the fall of the Soviet Union, someone had the bright idea of joining the BRICS. All that is left of BRICS is India and China, as we have always forecasted. And Prime Minister Modi has wisely reoriented that policy, and he had the Mosam policy, the neighborhood, look east, but he's putting all these together. Now these policies are not in conflict with each other. That is complementary. So we should look at, and there is of course the regional comprehensive economic partnership. Now we must look at how we can work together. You won't have a one grand regional agreement like the Maastricht Treaty or the Lisbon Treaty or one NAFTA. It will be a series of agreements which will bring this around. After all, what is Asia? We have virtually more than half or 60% of the world's population, a few billion. Single market is less than 500 million. The NAFTA is less than 500 million. Now Sri Lanka is looking at creating free trade agreements in the Bay of Bengal. That is twice the population of the single market. So you can't have one major agreement which is going to create this trade. We have to accept that there will be rivalries, but they all have the same aim of how to improve trade within Asia. And we should have two aims. One is increase the trade within Asia, and secondly, the economic aim of raising the living standards of our people so that Asia becomes a bigger consumer market with a larger middle class. And you go ahead. It also means that USA will start dealing with some of these countries quickly. In addition to Asia, we will have Australia, there's the Pacific Rim, and I must say East Africa, from the two oceans, the rim, Indian Ocean Rim and the Pacific Ocean Rim, should both form one free trade area. As far as trade is concerned. And let's work at it. There is the single market, and the EU that will also deal with these countries. And after its departure, the UK is looking at a role. Bulk of its Commonwealth countries are in Asia or in East Africa. So that's where the future lies. What should we do in Sri Lanka? I think we should promote it. Actually, today in Sri Lanka, you are finding Japan China and India. The One Belt, One Road has resulted in the development of Hambantota, the industrialization of Hambantota. We are working with Japan in a closer dialogue, whether we need FTA we have to study, and the development of the city of Kandy. We've already come into agreements with India, not only ECTA, but other understandings, which while Singapore is preparing a master plan for the development of Trincomalee, the Indian government will also be involved. So look, all of them are there in Sri Lanka. And no one is fighting. It's a question of how we manage our own policies, our friendships in the neighborhood, our friendships in Asia. And we have the agreement, we are now moving towards a GSP plus with EU. So look, I mean, we've shown how to get along. So let's work. I think Sri Lanka has a duty to press for closer economic cooperation within Asia, knowing that it's not going to be a single treaty. But who first advocated the meetings and the dealings of Asia and Pacific when we launched the Colombo Plan and when we called for the Colombo Powers Conference? Sri Lanka led the way. So let's play, I think we'll have an important role to play in getting Asian trade together and advocating it. And that's a way that we could reshape the world. Secondly, the one of security. I don't think there can be one security order for the whole of Asia and Pacific. I don't think you can even put the two together as Asia Pacific. Pacific, we have its own relationship with the USA, with China, and how they build it. The major area and dispute was the South China Sea. It's a unique way of resolving disputes. I suppose it's resolving international disputes with Chinese characteristics. Somehow or other, Philippines seem to be talking with China. But it shows the way that Asian diplomacy works. Sometimes the checkbook is more useful than an aircraft carrier. What happens to Indian Ocean? I think the countries of the Indian Ocean must come to an agreement on safeguarding freedom of navigation in the Indian Ocean. Just as much as we are committed to freedom of navigation in the Pacific Ocean, but we have a larger duty to ensure freedom of navigation in the Indian Ocean. Let these countries come together. But also you must remember that we must be fair by the other stakeholders, especially the East Asian countries. And Vietnam must not feel threatened and feel that they are in any way, their maritime interests will suffer. That is the way to work on it. Unfortunately, the Indian Ocean Rim, the Indian Ocean, the Iraq, has not been functioning. We should initiate discussions again. If Iraq is not functioning, is not capable, I said we must always ask ASEAN and SAARC, but now SAARC is also in difficulty. Nevertheless, we could take our own initiative in ensuring that the Indian freedom of navigation is there in the Indian Ocean. So we have always pioneered foreign relations. And what we are seeing is the rise of Asia doesn't mean by any means the collapse of the West. GDP-wise, Asia will be big. But per capita GDP still belongs to the West. There's a lot of power, a lot of economic power. The technological lead, the dominance of international markets, it will take a long time. But certainly it is a transition of power, which was solely in the West, also to Asia. And how does Asia look at its relationship with the West is what will determine the future, the world. The Congress of Vienna gave the world peace for 99 years outside the colonial wars. But certainly Europe had peace for 99 years. After World War II, after the Potsdam Conference, after the San Francisco meeting, after the establishment of the Bretton Woods, we've gone for 70 years. I think if West and Asia work together, we can take it for more than a century. There's also the issue of Russia, which I think is a temporary one, which will get resolved one way or other without any wars. Russia has asserted itself. How does the Western powers respond? A lot will depend on the new US administration. But at the end of it, it's the ability of the West and Asia to work together that will depend. So this is what our foreign policy has to be. And we also have to restructure our foreign relations established, not only the foreign ministry, the Ministry of International Trade, the others, Ministry of Foreign Employment, to meet these challenges and look at a new international service for our country. But it means to realize that we are in transition. The world is in transition. How we play our cards will determine the future of Sri Lanka. We are a small country, but still we have always played an important role. We lost that in the last 10 years. We tried to run against the international tide, the international order. We paid a heavy price. We are getting back. And I must thank the minister for leading the way, the deputy minister and the staff. So a lot more to do. And I wish you all the best in contributing to reshaping that foreign relations of Sri Lanka. Thank you.